Hey, also, sorry for the delay on today's show. Sorry for my hat too. Try to get my eyes out of the shade. Yeah, it's just been that kind of day here where we haven't even gotten showered and gotten ready for the show because it's been crazy rumors, and also the whole morning spent putting together the EA Sports teams for Kevin for USA Today stuff, which is really cool. And I'm simulating a game right now on my Twitch account. If you look for Hockey Buzz on Twitch, there's a game being simulated right now between the Bruins and the Canadians. I'm just doing a practice game, preseason game, which was 4-3 after 2. The Bruins were leading and badly outshooting the Canadians, but the Canadians were still managing to hang in there. Claude Giroux with 2 goals for the Bruins, which was surprising.
Because they got Carey Price. That's why.
They have Carey Price. It's Carey Price against Jonathan Quick in this game, so it's a good goalie matchup. Fun putting these teams together, really fun putting these teams together, and then also trying to screw around with all the numbers and stuff like that, and then trying to contact the GMs to see who they wanted their captains, assistant captains to be, and all that stuff. So it's pretty interesting morning. And they actually called up a couple of players and said, okay, so your number's not, you can't take this number on the team because this guy's that guy and this guy's. So I actually had a couple of players picking their numbers over the phone, which is really funny too. So
they were bribing each other in Monopoly money.
Yeah. It's amazing how many 91s made these teams for that number being such a strange number. You have and then like you have 2 92s on one of the teams, with Landeskog and who else is on that 92 on that team? I can't think right now, but so yeah, it's been a morning, and then of course the rumor I just posted. So let's start into the show. Russ is going to be joining. I'm going to send him another invite. Sorry, here we go.
Yeah, he said he's running a few minutes late, but he'll hop on. So
he's at the Winter Classic, so we don't expect a whole lot from him because he's going to be going crazy. But we'll see if we can get any of it.
He was skating around the ice apparently with a number of luminaries. By the way, is my volume okay? Is my mic okay?
Your volume's good.
Okay.
I haven't eaten a thing today. Sorry, I'm stuffing food in my mouth. It's locked. I mean, anyway. There he is.
I don't know how it's going to hold out.
It's all right.
The ice.
You're still on the ice?
Wow, we can't see anything, Russ. Oh, there you are, yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, we can see you now. That's something. No, this is Russ coming from the ice in New England.
Yeah, I'm resting, actually.
Russ, I have to ask you first, since you're in Gillette Stadium, are your balls inflated?
You know, I should have brought a headphone. The ice is good. It'll get. I really fouled this one up. No question about it.
You're fine. This is awesome. I love this. No, this is great. This is really good. This is great. I love this. This is awesome.
Just we wanted a close up of your ear there, Russ. Thanks.
Yeah, it's your ear. We've never seen your ear that close. But yeah. No, this is so you have. So what's the ice? Is the ice good? Is the ice good?
Ice is good. Yep. Forget that King Campbell report from yesterday. The ice will be fine tomorrow. Nothing will get canceled. Trust me. Nothing.
Very, very good. That's great. Oh man, that's so cool. So that's fun. I'm jealous. Now. That's.
Patrice Bergeron was pretty excited. Tuukka Rask was walking around. You know, he didn't get to start in 2010, so it looks like he's pretty excited too.
That's right. That was Tim Thomas, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure Brad Marchand will be excited to sit in the press box as he's suspended.
What did you say, Mike?
I said Brad Marchand is going to be excited to be sitting in the press box since he's going to be suspended.
Oh, yeah, you know, those things happen. It's amazing some of the storylines you get at the Winter Classic. Oh, I got to go take a team photo. All right, hang on. I'll be right back.
That's all right. We'll be all right. All right, well, we'll wait for Russ to return. I guess he just left his phone on the ice. I guess we're looking at the ice there.
Either that or the skies and the skies.
That's a live picture of the ice I'm showing you right now. There you go. So, hey.
And the ice is white.
You're not getting this from Puck Daddy, I'll tell you that much.
Let's not go there. Come on.
The ice is white. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, there you have it. Wow. Let's all right, well let's talk a little bit about this other stuff before we'll talk a little bit about this.
Do you want to do the intro?
Yeah, let's do that. It's the 29th of December, right? Yes. Okay.
It's the 30th, and cut to Russ's.
Oh, it's the 30th.
Cut to Russ's
That's
camera
right.
one.
We only have 2 days left. All right. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, December 30th, 2015.
I am Michael Agello.
And that is Russ Cohen, or as we call it,
from Sportology.
Russ Cohen from Sportology. And whoa! We're on his camera there. Apparently, either his camera just got covered up with a blanket. Oh, there's Russ. Hey, Russ.
Hey, I'm back. We had to take a team photo, you know.
That's fine. Did you actually play hockey?
No.
Okay, so you just skated. So Russ is at Gillette Stadium for those of you watching. And he's there. He just took the media skate, and that's awesome. All right, so we just did the introduction. We weren't sure where you left us there. Were we looking at the sky or were we looking at the ice dress?
He was looking at the bench. That's what it was.
Good. If you're looking at the sky and everything, the sky's a little gray. It looks a little bit like Buffalo, actually.
Oh, okay, so it's colder than it's pretty cold, I guess.
I want to say it feels like it's probably about 37 degrees, 35 degrees.
Is that fair?
Nice. So it's not unbearable.
It's bearable. Tomorrow it'll be a little warmer though.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, the Winter Classic is the biggest problem with it could be global warming, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It seems to be all right.
Now tomorrow, spot too. Don't worry.
Yeah, that'll be great. Well, I want to let you go back, Russ, because this is I know how hard this is to do. But thank you very much for coming from the stadium and everything like that. There's no big news breaking right now, right? All right. Well, thank you, Russ. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Talk to you later. That was Russ from Gillette Stadium. That's awesome.
I do a weekly video show, so I popped on for a minute. That's it.
I'm going to mute him just because who knows what the hell will come next. All right.
Our roving reporter, Russ Cohen.
Yes, Russ, there you go. All right, so let's get into some other things first here. All right. So one of the other reasons we were delayed today was besides doing the original 6 teams and putting them together on my EA Sports scheme, which was a lot of fun to do. Besides that, I was chasing a rumor all morning. And we talked about how hard rumors are to come by these days, and they are hard. So when you find something out, it's interesting. There's different things. There's different kind of rumors that I chase. There's your basic, okay, everybody's reporting it, so go look for it type rumor, which is, and those happen, a lot, and we've seen those before. The Hamonic one was a good example of that, right, where everyone was, everyone's calling everybody about Hamonic, and then once in a while you stumble on something by talking to a player or an agent who just happens to hear. So and this is what I get in my phone conversation. You obviously have heard. The guy I'm talking to on the phone says, "Well, I guess you've heard about the Pittsburgh and Edmonton thing that's going on." And no, I haven't exactly heard of the Pittsburgh Edmonton thing. Oh, really? That's not out there. I'm like, no, that's not out there anywhere I've seen. He's like, yeah, there's something going on there for sure. So I make a couple calls, and it was a lot of secretive, and a lot of people saying, well, no, we can't really talk about that now. No, we can't really. And which makes you wonder, okay, either it's something that's in the early preliminary stages, or something that that is just so off the record right now that they're trying to get it done, or very close to being done, which often happens when people won't talk to you.
Right.
And then I do talk to somebody who says, yeah, the Penguins are, I'll tell you this much, they're getting a defenseman in this deal if it happens, which is a little surprising because, you wouldn't look at Edmonton as a team you'd be going to for, to shore up your defense. We know the Penguins need defense, but the kind of defensemen the Oilers have are not exactly the kind of defenseman you would think that the Penguins would be going after. Like you had talked about, Mike, before, Justin Schultz.
Well, there's three possibles here because the Oilers have 2 guys who are UFAs. Justin Schultz is an RFA. He's making close to $4 million.
Right.
Justin Schultz is retainable since he is an RFA, so they can qualify him or they can go to arbitration. So it's somebody that Pittsburgh could hold on to. But we know he's been criticized, and rightfully so, over the last few years because he's not a good defenseman.
Right.
He apparently, Todd McClellan apparently asked him to concentrate more on his defensive game, because if you look at his stats, he only has 4 points in like 25 games. So he's not producing offensively, and I don't think he's really appreciably improved defensively. So maybe it's a case of where, Justin Schultz could be gone. Now, the other two possibilities are both UFAs. One is Eric Gryba, played in Ottawa for the Senators for years. Big, sort of defensive-minded defenseman, tough. That would be a bottom pairing potential possibility for the Penguins. I don't know how bad. I mean, they're bad off in terms of their depth on their defense, so maybe that's somebody that they'd be interested in. The other one is Nikita Nikitin. And now we heard his name a couple weeks ago, that he was recalled from Bakersfield, and that there was interest in him in terms of a trade. And the only way I could see that the teams would be interested in Nikita Nikitin is if Peter Chiarelli is going out there and saying, I will retain 50% of that salary to get him to be moved. If he's
you're right there, Mike.
Okay. All right. Well, if they retain 50% of Nikitin's salary, he's a $4.5 million cap hit. That would be $2.25 million. He's a defensive defenseman. He is not working in the Western Conference, but he was fairly effective when he was with Columbus. It would make sense for Jim Rutherford in the fact that he would be getting a veteran defenseman at a relatively low price, trading somebody to bring him in, so it would be probably a wash financially or fairly close. And they have a couple $1 million in cap room after the Pascal Dupuis LTIR situation. So that might be a deal that would make sense from the Edmonton side coming to Pittsburgh. As for what Pittsburgh would be sending to Edmonton, I mean, that's the thing. Edmonton doesn't really need forwards. That they're overstocked in forwards. A defense for defense deal doesn't make a lot of sense. The only other thing that might add up is that Edmonton is looking for goaltending, and we do know that besides Marc-Andre Fleury, Pittsburgh has two very good young goaltenders in Matt Murray and Tristan Jarry. So if maybe there's that kind of deal is a possibility. There's a couple other players that could be included. I don't think they want to trade a young guy like Daniel Sprong. So, I mean, these are possibilities. And if there's any truth to this, which, it does make some sense on the Pittsburgh side, looking to bring in a defenseman, then, we could see that deal happen, a deal like that happening. It's just a question of what Pittsburgh would be sending back. And I don't think Pittsburgh would be sending back a draft pick, because they've already traded a conditional draft pick in the Kessel deal last July. And I don't.
Sorry, continue.
No, I'm done. I was just stretching until you came back.
You're doing a good job.
I was just saying I don't think that if it's a deal between Pittsburgh and Edmonton and Edmonton sending a defenseman, it's not going to be a draft pick coming back, because Pittsburgh has already traded their first or a conditional first in the Kessel deal.
Right.
So I think it's probably going to be either a prospect goaltender or another defenseman. Maybe it's a D for D swap. Getting a forward from Pittsburgh doesn't make a lot of sense, because what does Edmonton need forwards for?
No, precisely. And here's the interesting thing, though. This deal could be way bigger than this. I've had situations like this before where I find out a part of it. Like, say the person I'm talking to knows the defenseman that's thrown into the deal. Okay. But he doesn't, but he knows, as I said, well, is the defenseman the key component to this deal? And no one would confirm that at all. And which implied that, okay, there's a defenseman going from Edmonton to Pittsburgh in this deal, but that's only part of it. Or there could be something way bigger involved. I know, Edmonton, it's two very interesting teams in an interesting time right now, because the Penguins, we all know what's going on with the Penguins. We know that we've talked about that at length. The Oilers are a different situation. They struggled a lot when McDavid went down. They've played a lot better since McDavid. McDavid's not back, but they've played a lot better. Actually, they're almost neck and neck with Calgary now. So they've been playing, but still, all that being said, I was told from the very beginning that Chiarelli would be making decisions, about a month before the trade deadline on where this team was, because he had to see it. He had to see it, watch it play. So he's seen a lot now. He's seen a lot of this team, and he's seen what they're like with McDavid, what they're like without McDavid. He's got a good perspective on these players.
Well, taking that into account, is this the opportunity for Chiarelli to, pull off the much rumored, either Yakupov deal or Eberle deal? Right. I mean, both of those, if it's Yakupov, that makes sense in giving a winger to Malkin.
Yes.
If it's Eberle, maybe it's giving a winger to Crosby, which we're going down the road that we went last July. Obviously, the Kessel thing is a failure because he's playing on the third line tonight against his former team with Nick Bonino as his center. He's not playing with Crosby, and he's not playing with Malkin, which was one of the problems that I said last July. Phil Kessel has been the epicenter, was the epicenter of the Toronto offense, and everything flowed through him. He's been like that since he went to Toronto. What was it, 5 years ago? You just can't turn that off, even if you're playing with Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin, who want the puck. So
that's the big problem, and that is the problem with a lot of these teams. And that is why you've seen, even in Philadelphia, you've seen Voracek and Giroux split apart. You're seeing guys. There's a big movement among coaches, especially some of the younger coaches or the newer coaches in the NHL, to not letting guys carry the puck. Basically the idea, and a lot of these players grew up, playing the puck. I mean, that's how they play the game. They grew up, carrying the puck. Voracek was at his best when you carry it 3 zones, we would always say. But the big saying now in the NHL is you're not really allowed to carry the puck over 2 lines, that you need to make a pass within that period of time. And, I've seen a little bit of that going on in Philly. I've seen a little bit of that going on in Pittsburgh as well with and it's affected certain players who like to get up ahead of steam and go. These are players that like to not think about making a pass until they've seen the whites of the goalie's eyes. These are the guys who like to carry the puck the entire way. And Kessel is obviously one of those players. And so is Crosby. So we talked about that when I didn't think it was a good matchup from day one. I thought Malkin and Kessel would make more sense. They could eventually learn how to work together.
And that didn't work either. So, and the thing is, Pittsburgh is in the bottom 5 of offense this year. In the bottom 5 of the league.
So if there's a team that's going to make a big trade with the Oilers for one of those top players, Pittsburgh's as good a candidate as any, because they're a team that when they look around, they don't apparently know what's wrong with them. And I really get the impression that Pittsburgh doesn't know what's going on. And I think that they might just be at the point of we've just got to change this. They're a team that could be ready for just a change for change's sake. And that could be one of the big players. I mean, I'm not saying that Crosby or Malkin are heading to Edmonton, but I'm just saying that this could be something.
Well,
big,
that's the thing that's puzzling here, because I'm looking at Pittsburgh's roster. I'm looking at what if it is an Eberle, if it is a Yakupov, if it's a major deal. What's going back to Edmonton?
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of that would be worth a young player like an Eberle or a Yakupov would be a guy like Ole Mata, but that defeats the purpose because Pittsburgh has got problems on their D, and you can't improve your D by giving up another one of them. That's the problem that's been going on. How many defensemen over the last couple of years? I mean, they traded Scuderi, they lost Orpik and Niskin, and then Paul Martin. They keep losing all these guys for nothing in free agency. And Letang is coming back tonight against Toronto, but they need to add defensemen. So I don't know what is going. There's not one great young forward that they can trade, and it doesn't make sense for Pittsburgh to be shopping Malkin, Crosby, or Kessel to Edmonton. I don't think Edmonton would want them. So I mean, not
with the exception of their most recent draft pick, I can't think of his name for a second, but the guy who was very controversial, part of the whole firing here in Pittsburgh.
Oh, Daniel Sprong.
Right, Sprong. Maybe that's what Edmonton's looking at in the situation. I mean, it's Sprong. Does a Sprong for Eberle trade make any sense? I mean, it's 2 teams changing for the sake of change. I mean, I'm just speculating. I haven't heard anything about this, but
yeah, I mean, that's where I'm puzzled. I mean, potentially is the value of Yakupov down so low? Because we're talking about a former number one pick who, when McDavid was healthy, was playing very well. So clearly, he can work and he can be pretty good if he's given the puck, if he's given the opportunity. But the question is, Sprong is a good prospect, a good young player, but he's 18 years old, and you really don't know what you have in him. There's a lot of potential there, but it's not the equivalent of a former number one overall pick.
Right. A lot of people have been trying to read the tea leaves on Chiarelli and looking back to what the kind of GM he was in Boston. I've talked to a lot of people, and they keep saying, okay, well, what got him in trouble in Boston was hanging on to players too long. That, it's no coincidence that after Chiarelli was gone, Lucic was gone as well. That there was a connection to this, that Chiarelli was not into moving players that had been established. Well, now he's on a team where there really aren't any established players. But you could argue, that Nugent Hopkins or Eberle or Hall have been around long enough to be somewhat established. But
Yeah, but that's where the marriage between Edmonton and Pittsburgh doesn't fit, because it makes sense for Chiarelli, after taking stock for half a season, to want to be proactive and move a big piece to improve his team overall. He's got enough offense. He's got Draisaitl and Hall and Eberle and Yakupov and McDavid. He's got that stockpile of young franchise-level forwards up front. He needs an equivalent piece on the blue line to go along with Clefbaum and Nurse. And he doesn't have that right now. So it would make sense for him to turn around and trade one of those guys to a team that has a stockpile of defensemen like Nashville, like we've talked about many a time. And that deal would benefit both teams. But Pittsburgh doesn't fit that unless it's Olli Maatta. And again, I don't see Rutherford, unless Rutherford has gone insane. Because I can't see them trading Olli Maatta with the fragility of their blue line. And I think he's their number two defenseman behind Letang. And when Letang is out of the lineup, they're number one defenseman, even though he's 21 years old.
Yeah.
You can't move that guy.
Right. You can't. I agree. I very much agree that we're going to have to watch it. It's going to have to be the thing that makes the most sense about these teams is not, it's hard to logically put a trade together, but it is not hard to see these teams being in the frame of mind to make something big happen. Like either of these teams are definitely teams that are ready to make something. And what I've heard, the most complaints I've heard from people about the fact that there are no trades happening is teams are not in the frame of mind to trade at all. That the teams are not, they don't know what they have, or they're not desperate enough, or they're not. These teams are two teams that I think are pretty much know what they have and are desperate enough to make a deal. I really feel like that the situation exists here.
Well, I mean, the thing, Rutherford has never been shy about making big deals. So, I mean, that's something that contributes to the possibility that this could happen. And trading young players. I mean, he's done it before. He'll do it again. And Pittsburgh, I think they're, to use a Texas Hold'em poker phrase, he's all in right now. I mean, he's going to probably be gone at the end of the year. It's make the playoffs or bust, because they've got a bunch of players in their late 20s who I think they need to make the playoffs and take a run. They're 6 or 7 points out of the wild card spot right now.
Yep.
They're not playing well. They're complete chaos. They fired their coach. The big trade didn't work. Crosby is 80th in scoring in the league. I mean, all these things contributing to what's going on right now. And maybe a roster shakeup is needed. I mean, they bring in Trevor Daley simply because he can carry the puck. And if they're looking for a defenseman, I think it's probably going to be another puck-carrying defenseman.
Yeah, it would have to be. I think it would have to be. I really do, because they are a team, like we talked about before, that a team that has a lot of receivers but no quarterback. So there's a lot of guys waiting for the puck that aren't getting the puck. And there's nobody getting the passes out to them from their own zone. There's no transition game. Pittsburgh at its best, was a great transitional team. Yeah. They were, and now they've really lost that. Their transition game is a mess. I mean, that's one of the things you first notice. You just notice that they can't carry the puck. It takes so much effort for them to get the puck from one end of the ice to the other, where before they were flawless with this. I mean, this was their strength. This is Baalsma's strength. Baalsma's strength was transition. That's the best part of his game. So,
and the only other thing I can think of, I mean, if you look at Schultz, like I said, he's making 3.9 this year. He's an RFA. If Peter Chiarelli and Todd McClellan have determined that Justin Schultz is not part of their future, that he's not working, they're not going to go out like when he's an RFA and not qualify him and let him walk away, because that you're letting go of an asset. So if you've determined that he's not part of your future, then trading him to Pittsburgh could make a lot of sense. Now, in terms of Pittsburgh going back, you've got a lot of young forwards. Maybe a guy like Chris Kunitz is somebody that interests Edmonton. Somebody who's a veteran. The salaries are pretty much a wash. You would then have a forward to bring in that if you do trade an Eberle or Yakupov, in the short term at least, a guy like Kunitz could fill the hole.
Yeah, no, he could. He does give you some experience. The question I would have if I was Edmonton is, these Penguins have not. You're bringing in experienced guys. You're bringing in experienced guys because you want to think that they've learned how to win. Like that. I wouldn't say this Penguins team is definitely a team that you're doing that with. Like Kunitz is not. It's not that he's a loser or anything like that, but he hasn't shown himself to be.
He won really 2 Stanley Cups and an Olympic gold medal. So
right. So yeah, you could say maybe you can make the argument. I mean, recent times he hasn't. It's been different, but you can make the argument. He did win 2 Stanley Cups. So yeah, that's very possible. It's going to be interesting as we move on to see how this team plays out, because I do agree with you that Rutherford is in a really weird situation. I go back to my old analogy, which I really like, in that the Penguins are a team that the Penguins is a team where are equivalent to a prospect that was rushed and had really early success and now doesn't know how to play the game anymore. And they're, if they could trade the entire team to another place, it feels like, like you would trade a prospect who would fall into this situation. Like a Tyler Myers is a good example. Like a guy who came in, was like really good for a year, then just fell off the face of the earth for a while, and then moves to Winnipeg and picks up its game again. The Penguins are in that spot right now where you need to move them. You can't move a team.
Well, the Penguins core is okay. First of all, they don't want to trade. I mean, at least right now, they don't want to trade Crosby or Malkin or maybe even Kessel. But even if they did want to, I don't know if they could, because the salaries are so big and they're not playing up to their usual level of their usual performance level. So
people would find a way to fit Crosby or Malkin. That's not an issue. But Kessel, Kessel's not tradable right now. But no. I agree with you. I mean, but there's no question that if Malkin's available, teams are walking in. Malkin maybe even more. Malkin probably would get, honestly, Malkin might get you more return than Crosby, but at the same time, Crosby's really a tough pill for the Penguins as well. I can't see the Penguins moving Crosby. I just can't.
No, and I'm what I'm saying is that that organization is not ready they're not ready to take that step and move one of those guys right now. That I don't think that the value they would get back for either one of them would be equivalent to what they're actually worth because they're playing so bad, but. Right. That's the whole point. I mean, they're the central pieces of that franchise, and they're not going to move them, especially when they're on the verge of selling the team, and moving an asset like that would not make a lot of sense. Yeah,
that's even more reason. I mean, Crosby especially. But there is an interesting thing going on in the NHL right now, which I want to discuss next. Teams in Montreal and the New York Rangers who started off gangbusters, and both of which have really come back to earth. And now there's a lot of ways to look at this. It's like we always look at the NHL season. We say, okay, at the beginning of the season, teams that get off to really fast starts, it's not uncommon to see like late December through, late January swoons of teams that they have nothing to play for type thing. They're so far ahead of everybody else.
Right.
This is something that happens a lot, where another teams, can pick it up. This is where the ground can be made up. I mean, Montreal's in way bigger than a swoon right now. The Rangers have had moments when they've look like Lundqvist right now is struggling. There's no Carey Price, obviously. Right. This is unbelievable. When you think about the fact that the Florida Panthers, with their 7th win in a row last night, have passed the Montreal Canadiens in the division, that's unbelievable. That just doesn't seem possible.
In Montreal, I really, and you know me, I never hesitate to criticize Montreal when I can. But in Montreal, I think it's simply injuries. I mean, Gallagher is the stirs the drink. He's the stick that stirs the drink. He's a fire plug. He gets that team going, and they've missed him as that that energizing force.
Right.
Price is the best goalie in the game, so that there's a step down there, and you thought that maybe they could survive for a month or 6 weeks without him playing the way that they do defensively. But I think what's been exposed over this time period is they're more reliant on Price standing on his head than anybody thought. They play decent defense. They don't play great defense. And you need a goaltender to save you every once in a while. And Price is the best in the game. And he has to be at his best for that team to go forward in the playoffs. They'll get him back. They'll get Gallagher back. They've waited long enough for them to get to 100%. And then Bergevin will probably at the deadline go out and get them a player or two. Because he's a smart GM. So I'm not worried about them making the playoffs, but I think this is a reality check. With the Rangers, and based on what Russ has said on previous webcasts, there's that playoff malaise that they're in the final 2 years ago, in the semis last year. Girardi and Mark Stahl have lost a step. They're without Derek Stepan. I mean, they're forced to play Dan Boyle, and Dan Boyle is 40 years old and has probably lost it. And Rick Nash is not scoring. So, I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors there to why they're underachieving. But if you look at it, they're still second place in the Metro. They're going to make the playoffs. It's simply a question of can they turn it on when the time comes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I felt that way with both of these teams for the first 2 weeks that they were in these slides. But now I'm starting to – I mean, I'm a Montreal fan, and I like to defend Montreal, so taking the opposite side of things. But who I'm not a fan of is Michel Therrien, and we all know this. And this is, to me, this is a really clear-cut sign of what Michel Therrien is all about, because when you lose Price and you lose Gallagher, yeah, it's a big, significant loss, but that is when coaching comes into play. That is when you have to put some lines together that make some sense. You have to motivate the players in a different way, and and not sit there and wait for Price and Gallagher to get back. Which has been, to me, has been a big problem with this whole thing, right? You've sat there and they've watched these guys slowly, they're waiting for Price and Gallagher. And Gallagher is a great player, but he shouldn't matter this much. He shouldn't matter as much as he's mattered.
Well, it's not just the fact that they're missing his offense. It's the fact that they're missing him as part of that line with him, with Pacioretty. It has a snowball effect. It's that one missing piece that makes everything else. There's more pressure on Pacioretty to score. There's more pressure on PK Subban to contribute offensively, and I think he still has one goal. I mean, that's the problem. So.
Yeah, but look at Detroit last year with Babcock, and a couple of years, where we've seen Detroit. They've lost players that are just as significant, more of them, and their coaches managed to come up with a way of getting their team to still win games.
But the difference is, Zach, is that the Detroit system, they had Nyquist and Tatar and all these young talents down in Grand Rapids that had won a Calder Cup the year before. I mean, the year that they had all those injuries and they had lost Datsuk and Zetterberg and Franzen and all their veteran players, they had half the Grand Rapids Griffins come up and make that late charge to get into the playoffs. In Montreal, they have some good young prospects down on the farm, but not guys at the level of Nyquist and Tatar. I mean, they have Michael McCarron, they have Carr, they have Gabriel Dumont or Charles Hudon. They have all these guys that are like third, fourth line guys, but not top six guys. So they don't have the wealth and the depth of an organization like Detroit did. And that's, I think it's a little unfair to Therrien. And I know that Bergevin came out a couple days ago and said, this is not his fault, and he's staying around. So you could say that that's a vote of confidence. If this keeps going when Gallagher and Price come back, then he might be in trouble, but I don't think it will.
But if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, does that ease your concerns? I mean, it's like, okay, yeah, you don't mean to be a jerk about it, but who can't win with Carey Price in goal? This is the thought process that goes on. Who can't win with when you have. I mean, Gallagher coming back is important, okay, and everything like that, but he's not. I mean, and I love Brendan Gallagher, but he shouldn't matter this much. you should be able to make this work. You should be able to find a way to cover that hole. You should be able to shift your lines around enough to not just have it mess up all your lines. There should be a way to do it. Price, I get. Price is enormously important, but when you lose a goalie like Carey Price, this is when coaching matters. So it doesn't matter as much, to be honest, when you've got Carey Price in there.
There's not a ton of talent there. That's been my assertion all along. I mean, Price is a great goaltender. They have a few really good clutch forwards. I mean, look at 2 years.
But there's enough talent to be better than this. I mean, this is.
Look at a couple years ago when they beat Boston in the playoffs and got to the conference final. They depended on an aging Danny Briere and Dale Weiss and Rene Bourque to carry them to the third round of the playoffs. And once Price got hurt, they were done. I'm just saying, it's like, there are teams that have enough depth that if a key player is injured, they can recover from it. Montreal is so dependent. I will tell you right now, if Price and Gallagher were healthy and they had lost Pacioretty and Subban for 6 weeks, the same thing would have happened. Maybe they would have won a few more games because Price could have stolen a couple, but they're dependent on 3 or 4 key players to carry them forth. And if they don't have half of them, they're in trouble.
But what team isn't dependent? I mean, we were talking.
So you can't blame Therrien then, because
no, you can't blame Therrien, because other teams have had this happen. Even Columbus, last year with all the injuries, made a run. When you lose this many games that they've lost in the way they've lost them, and just to not great teams. And losing. They're not playing the Central Division right now. They're playing. They're playing good teams and solid teams, but they should be able to come up with a couple more wins in there. They should be able to find a couple more, points in there. It's insane that Therrien has not been able to come up with a new line combination, and that there is a real sense of just waiting for Carey Price to come back. And that's what makes me, as a quasi Canadian fan, has always been what makes me furious, because try some things. You still have enough talent out there. You still have enough. You don't have a ton of talent, but you have enough to put some kind of system into place that'll help protect your goalies, or help. They really are just literally waiting.
Well, I think they've tried everything that they can with their existing roster, because there's been a pipeline going between St. John's and Montreal. They've called up a number of guys, given them a try, and send it back. They go out and get Ben Scrivens because Tokarski and Condon is just not good enough. And, they hope that the veteran and Scrivens could steal a few games for them. And he played, I guess, pretty decently against Florida last night. But simply, I just think they need Price back. They need Gallagher back. And at the deadline, Bergevin is going to have to go out and add another player that can help that core group. And I'm not saying that they can't win it all. If Price is healthy and they keep.
Oh yeah, no, they can. I agree with you.
I think they're flawed. I've always thought they were flawed, and maybe you're right. Maybe it was up to Therrien to step up and find some magic elixir, or find something that could make that team win. I just don't think they're good enough to win consistently without their key players.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about it for sure. But it's a tricky one. I wanted to go into this. So Shane Doan has another hat trick last night, and this is a crazy game. The Coyotes lose 7-5 in this game, but Doan puts up his second hat trick. It becomes the 15th player ever to record 2 hat tricks after turning 35 in his career. Shane Doan is just the class of the NHL. He's as classy guy as you could get. Obviously, has been a Coyote. Since the Coyotes were the Coyotes, he came over. He's the last remaining Winnipeg Jet. With them. And every year his name comes up in trade rumors, and every year, you hear, okay, well, he doesn't really want to go anywhere. He doesn't, he's very happy there. He's a big family's hugely important to him. I totally get it. I'm the same way. I see exactly, why he stayed in Phoenix or Arizona or wherever you want to call it. But, the question is, he could come back to Arizona after the year as a UFA. Is this the year, that people are starting to say, well, he really does bring a ton to a team, and he is such a character guy that for a couple months and maybe the last shot at a Stanley Cup, his name's going to start popping up again. Even though it's been said now, he's come out and said that he doesn't anticipate, moving. But, I still think that there's going to be some major offers, and Arizona's going to have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of an Antoine Vermette scenario. I mean, he got traded to Chicago, and he came right back to Arizona, and the Coyotes could benefit from a trade. I mean, and he's, I mean, I think he's 37 or 38 years old. I know he scored the hat trick last night, and he also scored a couple goals against Toronto before the Christmas break. So he's still a very effective forward. I remember when it came up for before his latest contract. I remember when there was talk about trade, and I think you reported this, and other people reported it as well, that the Dallas Stars were a team that were interested in him, and that he would be amenable to going to because it's not that far away from his home base, and even if it's a 2-month situation.
Dallas is one of them.
Yeah.
The other one is Nashville because him and Mike Fisher are really tight. So that also, is the other situation. I know Mike Fisher for years has tried to get him to go to Nashville.
Now, the only caveat to this situation is right now, Arizona's in the playoffs. Right now, I think they're second place in the Pacific Division. And for a franchise that is, intent on not being a parent at tanking and trying to win and trying to ingratiate itself to that fan base, trading your team captain and probably your franchise leader in scoring is not the way to go. So maybe those external pressures keep him there. And, he seems to still be able to play at a high level. So, if you see him sign to a year or two extension before the deadline, then obviously he's not going to move, but he's only going to move if he wants to move. I assume he has a no trade clause. So, but, maybe he wants to win that Stanley Cup. I mean, if it's Nashville, there's a good chance. If there's Dallas, there's a good chance, although I still think Dallas is a year or so away because they just don't play good enough defense to win in the playoffs.
Yeah. That's a really it's a hard call with Dallas. I mean, I think that they may be there already. We'll see, but they might be. It's a tough call for me. I mean, you could say that, but at the same time, they have so many of the right tools in place.
The only reason I say that is because scoring teams notoriously have trouble scoring when it gets tight in the playoffs. And,
right.
Sagan has playoff experience. He's won a Stanley Cup. Jamie Benn is an Olympic champion and a scoring champion and a great player. They've got experience now with Sharp and Niemi and Oduya. So there is some depth there. But still, they are really fast and loose offensive team. Lindy Ruff has a history of, having teams that can play defensively, defensively, but this team seems to be, just high flying, score as many goals as you can. And it's tough for teams like that to sort of play a strap down defensive style when it comes down to it in the playoffs. If they meet up in their own division against the St. Louis or Chicago, it's a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah. No, I buy that completely. I agree with you. Finally, Gomez and Gagne cleared waivers. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Gomez has also been put on unconditional waivers, I guess, which means that he's going to be bought out.
Yeah.
But Gagne clearing waivers is a little bit surprising. I'm not saying it's a ton surprising to me, but because his contract is what it is. But having watched him play this year, he was very good. And if I was a team that needed offense, like a Nashville or something like that, I would have given him a shot. I really would have, because I think that he's still got a ton of skill. He still has, he has his moments of you're not going to get a great defensive game out of Sam Gagne or anything like that. But there are moments that this year, especially, his not playing in Philadelphia was a little baffling because his numbers really weren't that bad for the games he played. He put up goals and was always creating opportunities and is a great power play guy. I think the Flyers had a feeling that, they had to do this to clear up the space to bring back Mark Streit, and I know that they had to do what they had to do, but I think that they had a feeling that someone might actually take a flyer on him, so to speak. Guess it's not going to happen.
Well,
I guess he's going to go to the minors.
Yeah, I think that Gagne's career in the NHL is far from being over, and I think you're right that probably there's 3 or 4 teams that were intrigued by him. I just think that, like what you said, $3.2 million on that salary for a guy who has 5 points in 18 games is not somebody that's going to take. They're going to take on in late December, because you basically use up all your available cap space
right
on one waiver claim. Now, again, if Philadelphia, if Ron Hextall goes out and says, I will retain salary, or I'll take a salary back in the deal, I think you have the makings of a deal there. But
I think that could happen. I think this could have been to throw them through waivers just to see, and now they go to work trying to actually move him.
Right.
And keeping $1 million and making him 2.2, or keeping $1 million, whatever, and then he becomes a lot more viable. I do agree with that. He's a weird story, because when they made the trade, they moved Pronger's salary to Arizona, and they got him. The plan was never to keep him at all. They almost had a deal. The word on the street was that they had a deal, that they were going to flip him right away, and that fell through right after they made the trade. And then they ended up with him, and not really. And then he said, you know what, I really want to give this a shot because I like this team. And he came in and played very well. But he was never somebody they intended to keep. So it was a weird scenario from the very beginning. And this Flyers organization, once they get set on something, is very much that's the mindset that they have lately. So yeah, I think that I'd like to see him. I kind of want to see him get another shot somewhere. I hope that hopefully they can make a move to pick him, to move him out of there, because
I mean, he's a good complementary player. I mean, he's played center before, but he's pretty much a winger now. If Pittsburgh wasn't in the Metro Division and the arch rival of the Flyers, that might have been some kind of fit. As a complimentary guy, as a winger for Crosby or Malkin. But, I mean, I could see a team like Chicago, or a team like you said, Nashville, be interested in a Gagne, as long as his salaries, and that's the thing, he's a UFA at the end of the year, I believe. So if that's the case, you're not tying yourself up in terms of retained money for years on end. It's 1 year. So it's cap management for 1 year. If you retain $1.5 million, you could be getting a pretty good asset back in this deal, because teams are looking for offense.
Yeah. And he's still young.
Yeah, he's 26, I think.
He's still young, and can still he will sign. I mean, somebody will sign him as a UFA. So there's no question that he's going to be there. But well, it's a quick hour, Mike. Thank you very much for jumping on. We'll be back again tomorrow, guys. For one more day, I will be back again tomorrow at 1:00 or so. At this point, we'll figure out who we've got coming on, and we'll see what time we do it. So just stay tuned for that.
Should I bring
holiday week is?
Should I bring my party favors?
Absolutely. This holiday week's always tricky. So next week we'll be back on more of a regular schedule. So talk to you soon, guys. Without the buzz, remember, it is just hockey. We will talk to you later.